Specialty Hospital since 2002. He is a director post DMD DM program for internal medicine at Sudha Hospital. He has been receiving various awards and accolades over the previous years. If I can name a few of them, he has received prestigious Vikas Ratna Award in 2002. May I have a hand of applause for Dr. Amit Mehta, please? And Bharat Vikas Samman Award in year 2017. He will be talking today on pleural effusion, diagnostic implications and evaluation. Dr. R.D. Goyal, HOD Medicine, MMC Global. Dr. Goyal, please. If we have Dr. Ajay Chuk.
Family medicine webinar, seminar and workshop, because this is working in the field of medicine and patient care and also in preventive medicine. But now they have shifted to training also. That is very important and good. And not only that, it has become a platform for training other doctors also who are into practice to share their opinion. So first, I must congratulate the health department for taking the initiative in this direction. Not taking much time, let me start with my topic, which has been given to me, that is pleural effusion, diagnostic implications and evaluation. The first is why the word pleural effusion has come. For example, when we do echocardiography, we label the patient as dilated cardiomyopathy, ischemic cardiomyopathy, restrictive cardiomyopathy. So we never label as cardiomyopathy. But because of the diagnostic limitations of the X-rays, which we use as the diagnostic marker for pleural effusion, we only are able to label it as a pleural effusion and not further. So for going further, we need further set of investigations, which I will be delving upon. So first, before going into the pathological pleural effusion, let's know about the physiological effusion. The normal volume is 10 to 15 ml. And the purpose of effusion, the normal pleural effusion, we understand, it is to lubricate the membrane, pleural and visceral pleura, so that one is breathing, which is very frequent. Let's say we are breathing at least 60 to 20 times in a minute. So there is no injury to the lung. And because of the pathological processes, it becomes inflamed for different reasons, then it becomes pleural effusion. So analysis shows pH is 7.6 to 7.64. Proteins are 1 to 2 grams per deciliter and WBCs are less than 1000, which is 2% neutrophils, 7 to 11% lymphocytes. The values are different than what we see in the blood. So 61 to 77% are macrophages and 9 to 30% are mesothelial cells. And pleural effusion glucose is equal to serum glucose. And pleural LDH, serum LDH is less than 50%. So these should be known before we go further and say something which is abnormal. The physical, once we do that, we will come to know the physical nature of the fluid, which sometimes helps us in putting some differential. That's a purulent, which is empyema. If there is a smelling fluid odor, then we call it anaerobic empyema is likely. Milky appearance gives us chylothorax, and if it is grossly burning, it is pneumothorax, either or trauma or malignancy. If it is a black fluid, it is fungal, either aspergillus or vapor. The next step comes, we want to differentiate in a line is whether it is exudative or transitive. So these are the definitions which we do on the chemistry. The ratio of the fluid LDH over serum LDH is more than 0.6 because of the exudation. In transpirative, it is less than 0.6. Same with proteins, ratio between pleural and serum is more than 0.5 because of the protein exudation into the fluid, while it is less than 0.5 in transpirative. The way we do SARC in ascites, it is also done in pleural effusion. Serum albumin and pleural albumin gradient is more than 1.2 gram deciliter. It is in exudative, it is dominated, it is in exudative. The pleural protein is more than 3. If it is taken as an absolute term, pleural LDH, it is 2/3 than the upper limit of normal of serum LDH. In our lab, we are having 240 is the upper limit of the LDH, so we are taking the cutoff of 160 not there. Pleural cholesterol is more than 55. So when we have too many diagnostic criteria,
Civil Surgeon Nisar, we welcome DGHS Dr.
simply do the last three tests, that is protein, the LDH and cholesterol. And if any of them is positive, we label the patient as activated. So you don't require to do blood test every day. So then we should be aware of the causes. If the patient has transmitted, now it boils down to few common causes. The list is not exhaustive, it is restricted so that we know the common causes. That is the congestive heart failure, cirrhosis, nephrotic syndrome, myxedema, and urinary prolapse. Simultaneously, we should be knowing the causes of tuberculosis, that is accelerated. We know tuberculosis is common in India, it is one of the major causes. The parapneumonia, when we see recent practice, the malignancies, that is measles glioma or metastatic pleural deposits, the pulmonary embolism, the pulmonary infarction, the trauma, cardiothorax, and pseudocarditis. These are again the common causes of accelerated fluid diffusion, and in the clinical setting, and also what we should be discussing regarding how to differentiate them. So after doing that, we want to know what is the pleural fluid glucose, because that helps us in narrowing the further diagnosis. So if plasma fluid glucose is less than 60 mg per deciliter, which is available as a routine examination, so we are left with very few diagnoses, that is rheumatoid arthritis, SLE, bacterial infection, tuberculosis, and neoplasm. So many causes of accelerated are local. Next time we look at the absolute value of fluid LDH, and if it is more than 1000, then it is more likely empyema, malignancy, RA, or DCT. In this category, the tuberculosis gets ruled out because tuberculosis generally has LDH around between 200 to 500. So suppose we have patient where we are confused whether it is infection is secondary to pneumonia or whether it is secondary to tuberculosis. The LDH does help us reach it. We also look at the pleural fluid pH. In our review, I have discussed it 7.6 to 7.64. The transit rates have a low pH, that is 7.4 to 7.55, while accurate have a much lower pH, that is 7.3 to 7.45. And what are the implications? The parapneumatic effusion with pH less than 0.2 requires intra-ICT drainage. The empyema generally have pH less than 7, and the malignant fluid effusion if pH is less than 7.3, then there is a high diagnostic chances that we will get a malignant cell, and it carries a poor prognosis. So pH is a simple test which can be done, and it can guide us whether the patient requires positioning of ICD or not in a patient of parapneumonia. And we finally look at the WBC, whether it is a neutrophilic, lymphocytic, whether it is a basophilic, eosinophilic. So in neutrophilic effusions, there are common bacterial infections. Then we have pulmonary embolism and intra-abdominal abscesses. In lymphocytic effusions, we know it is tuberculosis is common. Although in early tuberculosis, it may be lymphocytic, but later on it is lymphocytic. And RA, and then lymphomas, the lymphocytes are there. In malignant fluid effusions, again lymphocytes will be raised. And the common viral infections also have lymphocytic fluid effusions, which are spontaneously gained. If you have a basophilic effusion, if it is basophilic more than 10%, it suggests leukemic involvement of the pleural. If we have eosinophilic effusion with peripheral eosinophilia, then the possibility of fungal and parasitic infections or polyarthritis nodosa or some drugs is there. But then you have effusion which are eosinophilic effusion without peripheral eosinophilia. The pathology is restricted to the fluoride cells. So it is in pneumothorax, pulmonary infarction, trauma, and malignancy. Malignancy is also called eosinophilic effusion. If we have many mesothelial cells, that is, let us say it is more than 10%, then it is more likely to be mesothelioma. But negative value is important. If the cells are high, then the TB, if the cells are more than higher than 10%, the tuberculosis is unlikely. This we should be aware. If any side is showing more than mesothelial cells, so we should not give tuberculosis as the first possibility. We should also try to rule out other causes. And if you see malignant cells, then possibility of pleuropetastasis is there. A few words about the paraneumonic effusion. The accumulation of fluid in the pleural space in the setting of an adjacent pneumonia. And there are three stages of paraneumonic effusion. The first stage is uncomplicated and simple paraneumonic effusion. The stage 2 is when it becomes delayed, it becomes complicated because of the bacteria at high count, low pH. Then we call it complicated and fibrofluent paraneumonic effusion. And stage 3 is chronic and organizing type of paraneumonic effusion. The differentiation is important because the management and prognosis is different. The fluid characteristics in stage 1 is activated, they are all activated. We low to moderate WBC, LDH is less than 1000, but normal pH and glucose levels, and no bacterial organisms. Imaging characteristics very small to moderate in size, and it is free-flowing. We do ultrasound, there are no loculations, it is free-flow. Treatment typically resolves with antibiotics, rapid long, and drainage is sometimes required if it is symptomatic, otherwise not required. Stage 2 is a complicated and fibrofluent. We call it fibrofluent because they are separated. So it is activated characteristics, high WBC, pH is more than 1000, as I have discussed. The pH more than 1000 supports the possibility of paraneumonic effusion. pH is very low, less than 7.2, and if it is less than 7, it is a frank angina. And sugar is the fluid glucose is less than 40. So bacterial organisms are present when we do culture or grams. They are generally large and free-flowing, sometimes loculated or with associated fluid thickening with contrast enhancement. The difference is we require antibiotics, but we also require drainage. We would require the fibrinolytics and drainage for causing the fibrinolysis. The stage 3 is a chronic organizing stage, that's a late stage, and this comes weeks to months after the pneumonia has been treated, but the fluid has not been looked after. So fluid will be difficult to drain because of sort of thickening, and bacterial organism may or may not be present. It may be, and fluid has become dry fluid by now. They may be large populated or with fluid thickening, and may be excessive and demonstrated fluid will rotate around. Fluid calcification may be evident. So we have to give antibiotics, but drainage is very important, and sometimes we would require wet surgery to decorticate the chicken sugar and to put multiple drains to drain them out. Few words about phytothorax and pseudophytothorax because it is important for DMB students and the family medicine students. These are the questions which are likely to be asked. What is phytothorax? This is the accumulation of chyle in pleural space due to thoracic duct rupture. And what are the common causes? We can easily understand. It can be due to surgery, it can be due to trauma, it can be due to tumors or lymphoma or bronchovein-carcinoma, and other common would be the filariasis. And how do we diagnose that? The pleural tube triglyceride is more than 100 milligrams per deciliter. Both chylomicrons are present, which are seen on microscope. And then what is pseudophytothorax? It is the combination of cholesterol in long-standing fluid effusions, especially tubular and rheumatoid arthritis fluid effusion when they are long-standing, they could have cholesterol. The diagnosis is pleural tube cholesterol more than 200 and pleural tube ratio of cholesterol over triglyceride is more than 1. So these are the diagnostic fluid tests which are confirmatory. For angina, we need to, by observation, we come to know generally. I mean, when we do, we see it is first and we put a drain into it. Otherwise, we have a positive culture. Malignancy we see by cytology. Tubercular pleurisy and the positive DMB stain culture for celiac. The esophageal rupture. The high salivary isovaleric form of amylase, low pH, often as low as 6. Ingested retrieval or wheat fragments. Especially some of them patients who have got endoscopy done and inadvertently the esophagus has got ruptured. So this kind of fluid treatment are seen in practice. We have seen with the patients. Phytothorax is again I have defined triglyceride more than 110. Cholesterol is treated cholesterol more than 200 but deciliter with a cholesterol to triglyceride ratio of more than 1. Hemothorax, ratio of fluid to blood hemostatic of more than 0.5. Extravascular migration or misplacement of central venous catheter because now we have more elderly patients and people have more comorbidity. So a lot of times central venous lines are loaded. So they did not develop infusion. So iatrogenic injury. So the serum, the fluid to serum glucose ratio of more than 1 and fluid loss appearance mirrors inclusive. For example, if we are giving milky white, if lipids are being induced. Rheumatoid USC, pathologic evidence of elongated macrophages and distinctive multi-nucleated dead cells that those cells in a background of porous damage. So ICD, this is important. When should we put the ICD? Intercostal area. One is because the fluid cavity that is angina, with pH is less than 7.2, pleural fluid glucose is less than 16, lobulated fluid fusion and fluid fusion gram stain and culture are positive. Now we come to radiological features. I have an X-ray here. So just anybody, the students can comment whether there is any fusion or not. Any comment from medical students? If you see the right right. Is there any fluid fusion from medical students? Yes, anybody? Left side. Why do you say so? There is. Okay, so there is CPN angle hunting. Right. So there is CPN angle hunting. You can see it is well shown in the next slide. Take a lateral view in phosphotronic angle, it can detect up to 50 to 100 ml of fluid. But ultrasound can detect up to 5 to 10 ml of fluid also. And it can differentiate loculated fluid fusion from thickened dura. We all have been doing that. Whenever patient is under follow-up for tuberculosis, we continue to see there is a fusion, probably there is a fusion, patient not responding. We get an ultrasound done and it shows no, there is no fusion now, it is all pleural thickness. So that helps us. And it is also effective in fluid aspiration even when small and loculated effusions are there, which we cannot do clinically. And it can sometimes help us in differentiating translated versus aggregated by the Starlight effect, the hemothorax, and septations. Septations are important because they give us an indication to plan for an ICD. And to some extent they can give us some volume also on the fluid is there. CT scan is excellent at detecting small amount of fluid, often able to identify the underlying intratoxic subdiaphragmatic pathology. Because that helps us in making the diagnosis. Suppose we have actual lesion, so we know it is probably malignant fluid fusion. And suppose we see subdiaphragmatic collection, so they get some diaphragmatic classes. So what are the differential diagnoses? Again, we should be aware of them. Elevated hemidiaphragm may be because of hepatomegaly and renal nerve palsy. The collapse or consolidation in the lung may mimic like a effusion. And with fluid thickening, for example, low tuberculosis or angina or treated tuberculosis will give the similar look. And a poor radiographic technique where the X-ray has been not given the straight and there is some obliquity when the X-ray is being done. A few words about the TB fluid fusion because that we all should be aware and we should not be making any mistake. The causes are delayed hypersensitivity reaction and sometimes there is a rupture of subpleural focus and the complication is tubercular nephritis. We should be aware of the characteristics. It is straw colored, proteins are more, it is exclusive, it is aggregated more than 3, sometimes up to 4 grams. LDH is increased, but it is not increased as much as in parademonic effusion, where it is more than 1000, while in deep effusion it is around 400 to 500. pH is less than 7.4, the dose is 60 to 100, but sometimes it can be low also. The treatment is predominant lymphocytic, but occasionally in early stage it can be lymphocytic also. And at this point should be, since patient report sometimes coming to us and we do ultrasound, do a small tap, sometimes it is lymphocytic, so we should not get biased towards the bacterial infection. EDA more than 70 makes it highly probable, 40 to 70 indeterminate, and less than 40 low likelihood. This I will be discussing in the next slide. Causes of false positive EDA are important. We should not think all patients who become positive EDA are tubercular. So it can happen in lymphoma also, which is a common differential, RA also, and lymphoma also. And CBNet, TrueNet, they have a low sensitivity and also high specificity, but because of low sensitivity, it is not a test of choice in this category of patients. So the diagnostic flow rate which is recommended is fluid fusion due to suitable combination and synthesis, and if you could see alternate etiology like translative respirative, we do further investigation. But if sputum or fluid become positive for ASB or CGNAT, we start getting TB treatment. Otherwise, we do fluid ADA. If it is more than 70, we initiate various anti-TB therapy. Why we say various? Because still we don't have a clear diagnosis, and we also know that ADA will be positive for other disorders also. If it is between 40 to 69, and there is a suspicion, for example, age is less, and fever is there, non-smoker, and so alternate etiology is unlikely. Patient is not elderly towards pregnancy, and patient has fever and non-smoker. So we initiate again anti-TB empirical therapy. If no response in 4 weeks, we go for fluid biopsies. Or if fluid to ADA is less than 40, we don't keep much chance of being a tubercular, and we have to do a fluid biopsy to make a consistent diagnosis. Those patients who respond to treatment will have improvement in their general condition by 2 weeks and significant improvement in fluid fusion by 4 to 8 weeks. This awareness of constitutional symptoms with increasing fluid fusion suggests responsiveness to treatment. Increasing fluid fusion can suggest paradoxical reaction, as Dr. Azad has discussed, drug-resistant tuberculosis, or alternate etiology. So we should be repeating the X-rays after 4 weeks or maybe after 8 weeks also. The patient doesn't seem to be responding, and we should keep our vigilant eye as to the differentials. The follow-up chest X-ray 4 to 8 would be required. This would be a repetition. Now treatment is how to treat the patient. Treatment is to the underlying condition. It is not a disease, it is a manifestation of disease. So you are treating the underlying condition. But symptomatic patients with large patients will be treated by therapeutic aspiration. Rectosynthesis, there are 3 ways. Either you do clinical test if there is a massive fusion, and if otherwise you can do an ultrasound mark test where the ultrasonologist will mark the site and suggest how much deep you have to go, or third is ultrasound guided test. So depending on the condition of the patient, the volume of the fluid and the availability of the services, we can do any of them. If a patient reaccumulates, we do bed surgery and fluorodesis. And but watch for the expansion pulmonary edema. So whenever fluid is being removed, we should see that not in a row, not more than 1 to 1.5 liters is low, because excessive fluid lowers is called sudden expansion on the lung, and which happens because of the compression which is ischemic, and suddenly there is capillary leak and infiltration of fluid into the lung, leading to pulmonary edema. The role of steroids in TB infusion, although Dr. Azad has discussed the role of steroids in tuberculosis, when there is extrapulmonary tuberculosis, but then there are bodies who feel that there is no role in decreasing mortality or complication, only decreases frequency of the fever. So take-home messages: fluid fusion is common medical condition in physician practice. Investigation like chest X-ray, ultrasound, and biochemistry, which helps us to make comparative, aggregated, differential, and cytology, neutrophilic, lymphocytic, eosinophilic, basophilic, renal cells, helps us in reality. If there are time, I have to see which questions also, if there is time there. Okay. The first question, these questions will be asked from the student first, and later they will be open to the house. They are easy ones. A 50-year-old man presents with a 2-month history of worsening shortness of breath. Based on the chest X-ray evidence, what is the most likely reason for patient's dyspnea? Is it metaphysis, that is breath, or is it fluid fusion, or is it pneumonia, or prior pneumonia? Yes. Pardon? What? Fluid fusion. Okay. Somebody else? Pardon?
Sir, first, atelectasis.
Okay, the answer is atelectasis. The reason is because if you look at the trachea, it is shifted towards the side of the whiteout. That means there is a lung volume loss. And so this is a marker which is suggesting that the lung is collapsing. So the atelectasis is the right answer. Okay, the next. this name. Right. Why? Blue पहले मिल गया था. Good one. So we see there is a lung volume expansion in terms of shifting of heart to the right side, the shifting of trachea also to the right side, and there is some degree of the intravertebral expansion also. Therefore, suggesting there is something which is occupying the space. So it is a fluid diffusion. One more. A 30-year-old male with a history of erotic cough, chills and nausea. What is the most likely cause of this amylose or expiration? If you see on the right of the top, there are fibroparenchymal lesions visible on the right side of the top, and there is no necessary. So on the X-ray itself, we can make a probable diagnosis of tubular lung lesion with associated fluid diffusion, which is operated.
So, seeing the shortage of time, any kind of question?
Thank you, sir. So I just want to know when does we expect to start resolution of pleural effusion after starting ADT?
After starting ADT, although it is variable obviously because of the volume of the infusion, and but the symptoms, it is like tuberculosis. I mean, it's a response like tuberculosis. We understand in a patient who has tuberculosis, generally the disease starts resolving, the constitutional symptoms start resolving in 2 to 3 weeks, maximum 2 to 3 weeks. So same is true of diffusion. But suppose it is a delayed diffusion, so there has been reasonable fluid thickness. So extravasation out would take longer time. But the constitutional symptoms start improving in 2 to 3 weeks time, and the X-ray should show some degree, reasonable degree of resolution by 8 weeks. Failing which,
We of Civil Surgeon once again respected His Excellence DGHS Dr. Ranjit Singh Punia, Dr. Kuldeep Gauri, he is a Director Dental Department DGHS Panchkula. We also have with us Dr. Ajay Mahajan, who is IMA President Haryana, and Dr. Jaswant Bansal, he is IMA President Hisar. May I now invite respected Civil Surgeon to felicitate the speaker. Very interesting. Dr. Amit Mehta. May I also invite all the chairpersons to please come forward. Thank you, sir. Dr. Ajay Chugh, he is MD Medicine and HOD at DCH Hisar. Dr. Gyanendra, please. He is postgraduate diploma in cardiac and management at DCH Hisar. Dr. Gyanendra. And we have a wonderful working couple in DCH Hisar, Dr. Ajit Nathan, he is MD, the consultant physician at DCH Hisar, and his spouse and better half, Dr. Manju. Dr. Manju, she is pediatrician at DCH Hisar. Thank you, Civil Service ma'am.